Hi, everyone, and welcome to our final exam review. You have made it to the end of the course. I am just so proud of the work you've done so far, and I urge you to keep that good work going because we're right here at the end and don't lose that momentum yet. So the final exam review is going to be all right, so the final exam review is going to be a lot like our midterm exam review in that we are basically doing a very short introduction to the exam, just some things that you should expect and so forth. We'll do some mock test questions that you may or may not see on the exam just to kind of test your knowledge and see where you stand. And then, of course, at the very end, I will offer you a study guide. And the study guide is where I have basically just picked through everything I could pick through as far as what's going to be asked on the exam. And I've given you the keywords to study with. So that should be a real benefit to you. Now, if you didn't do as well as you'd like on the midterm exam, I do ask you to utilize the study guide and really work to create some wonderful notes for you to study based on the concepts and the ideas, the terms that I have listed on the study guide, because that's going to be really helpful for you. Now, a lot of you've already gotten back to me about the midterm, and you guys, the ones that did awesome on it, and you basically said exactly what I just said. The midterm exam study guide really helped you, and you feel like that's what helped you to be better prepared for the exam. So I appreciate the feedback on that. And you guys just remember to utilize this study guide as well for this exam. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump in here. The final exam will cover chapters 8 through 13 and all course materials that we've covered so far. I've been made aware of the fact that some of you guys are using a newer edition of the textbook, which is the 11th edition of the textbook. However, don't forget that our course syllabus as for the required textbooks was for the 10th edition. So just keep that in mind. And I kind of touched on that in the course orientation meeting as well. And I did refer to the fact that you might have to not necessarily use the numbered chapters that we have for your readings, but instead use the chapter titles, because of course as they update the editions of the textbook, the chapters numbers may change, but for this it looks like the chapter titles stay the same. So if you're using the 10th edition, that is an option, and then if you're using the 11th edition, then that's what you're going to need to do as well. So just kind of something to keep in mind there. Always check the chapter titles just in case. Now, you may not use your notes, textbooks, or any other references while you're taking the exam. You will have approximately an hour and a half to complete the 50-question exam. So very similar to the midterm exam, just kind of a reminder on these things. Because this is a common question, don't forget that the exam questions are multiple choice and true and false. So just kind of something to be aware of there. And please make sure to check out syllabus page 2 for the exam time frame. Okay, so it's very important that you do take the exam during that given time frame, because once the exam closes, it cannot be reopened for any reason. Now, with that being said, don't forget, just like your midterm exam, that you will need to complete the BioSig verification process to verify your identity before you can access the final exam. So that is going to be a part of this process as well, just like you did on the midterm exam. Another important aspect I want to note here is that you make sure you are taking the exam in a secure location on a secure computer, because once if well, basically in a nutshell, I can't reset the midterm or the final exam for any reasons at all. So if you have an internet glitch, if your computer cuts off, those are things that they're very unfortunate, but the department will not allow me to reset these exams. So you have to make sure that you're taking the exam in a very secure location on a secure internet connection and so forth. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into some questions here. Just like the midterm exam review, I'm going to read the questions, I'm going to read the answer choices, and then I will tell you what the proper answer choice is. So, which of the following would not be likely to increase cohesiveness in a group? Competing individual goals, progress towards group goals, shared norms and values, or competition from outside the group? So which one would not be likely to increase cohesiveness? And that's going to be A. Well, here it's bullets, right? That's going to be competing individual groups, So group cohesiveness tends to develop when the group's shared norms and values makes progress towards group goals and faces competition from outside the group rather than from within the group. Okay. Groupthink refers to a desirable condition in which each member of the group engages in critical thinking, a desirable condition because the group is able to make decisions quickly, guided by the members with the most expertise, an undesirable condition because members feel too intimidated to express the dissent they feel about proposals, or an undesirable condition because groups that spend too much time listening to members' various ideas are too slow to take action. And the correct answer here would be it's an undesirable condition because members feel too intimidated to express the dissent they feel about proposals. So in a nutshell, groupthink is a state of excessive conformity that prevents members from expressing this dissent or examining their ideas critically. All right. Next questions. If a meeting served a social rather than a task function, which type of meeting would it be? Information sharing, problem solving, decision making, ritual activity. Which one? And the correct answer here is going to be a ritual activity. So social meetings are classified as ritual activities, just something to keep in mind there. Next question. During a meeting, if the discussion rambles on after a decision has been made, let the discussion occur because it is beneficial, ask the talkative member to be quiet, summarize what has taken place in the meeting and then redirect the discussion, or change the subject. The correct answer here is going to be summarize what has taken place in the meeting and then redirect the discussion. So if the discussion is rambling on after a decision's been made, you want to summarize the decision and then redirect the group's focus on to the next task. I find that works best in these situations. Okay, next question. The conclusion of a presentation should consist of a review and closing statement, challenging your audience and listing your references, an appeal for action, and at least one new piece of information supporting that appeal, or a joke and a closing statement. I'm hoping that since you guys have been working on presentations that you know now that the conclusion of a presentation should consist of challenging your audience and listing your references. Okay, so you can use a rhetorical question to involve your listeners in the topic. Just kind of something to keep in mind there. There's a lot of things you can do there. In fact, as a closing as a whole, you basically want to give the audience a signpost. So, excuse me, I completely read the wrong thing to you there. I just noticed what I did. The conclusion of a presentation consists of a review and a closing statement. I'm sorry, I thought the question there said it should not consist of. But so let's go over that one more time, right? Professor Davis needs a little more coffee today, obviously. The conclusion of a presentation should consist of a review and a closing statement. So you can use rhetorical questions for that closing statement. You can use participatory questions. Stories are a great way to close something. Facts, statistics, things like that. So what I like to do is I like to tell my students that basically the conclusion is going to consist of 3 parts. The first one's going to be the signpost, and a signpost can be something just as easy as in conclusion, okay, or to conclude. That lets the audience members know where you're at in the speech. Now, the next thing you want to do is restate your main points, and that's why we talked about this, and this today, basically. So we're solidifying those points into the listener's minds. And then we want to end with a closing statement. And I always like to kind of throw this at my students. A good closing statement, or what we like to call a clincher, would be, or even a memorable statement, it's also called that, would be stories, quotes, questions, facts, or statistics. And that's a great way to kind of give that psychological closure to the speech. Okay, moving on. I jumped ahead of myself there. A rhetorical question is best used to support a thesis, involve your listeners in your topic, get a measurable, overt reaction from the audience, or demonstrate your expertise. So, rhetorical question is best used to, and that's going to be involve your listeners in your topic. So, rhetorical questions can be used to involve your listeners with the topic. Another way that you can involve listeners with the topic is what we call participatory questions, and that's one where we actually get a show of hands on something or something like that. So each question has a place, time and a place though, so you want to make sure to research that in your textbook. All right. Next questions. Visual aids are used in presentations for a number of reasons. According to your text, which of the following is not one of those reasons? You can take a break from speaking while the audience looks at your visual aid. Visual aids allow you to illustrate the relationship between aspects of the whole. Visual aids allow you to demonstrate steps in a process. Or visual aids can help you emphasize your most important points. And the correct answer here is going to be well, let's reread the question. Visual aids are not used in presentations for a number of reasons. According to the text, which the following is not one of those reasons? So one of these is not one of the reasons. And that would be, you can take a break from speaking while the audience looks at your visual aid. You want to accompany your visual aids with an oral explanation. So you don't want to just say, here's my visual aid, everybody stare at it. You want to actually accompany your visual aid with some form of an oral explanation. All right, next question. Supporting material that explains the unfamiliar by comparing it to the familiar is called a example, story, statistic, or analogy. And I hope that you know this one right off the top of your head. It's going to be an analogy. An analogy compares items from an unfamiliar area with items that are something that is more familiar with what we know about, okay? Just so when you think of analogy, think of it as a comparison with comparing something that's unfamiliar to something that is familiar for us. All right, next questions. The text identifies a number of potential delivery types from which a speaker can select when preparing a presentation. Which of the following types is most likely to cause anxiety or stage fright for the speaker? Extemporaneous, impromptu, manuscript, or memorized? And as you might imagine, that's going to be memorized. When a speaker and this is why I always ask you guys not to do this, when a speaker tries to memorize their presentation, this often increases their anxiety levels, because if you miss one word, you've kind of forgotten that rhyme that you had in your head to help you remember where you were going with things. All right, your text describes all the following methods of delivering a presentation except, so which one is not discussed in your textbook? Extemporaneous, impromptu, manuscript, or informal? Okay, so let's discuss that real quick. The four methods of delivery are going to be manuscript, memorized, impromptu, and extemporaneous. So if we were to look at it from that way, we would know that informal is not one of the methods discussed in your textbook. All right, next questions. The blank pattern of organization places several alternatives side by side and shows you why yours is the best. Motivated sequence, criteria satisfaction, problem solution, or comparative advantages. The correct answer here is going to be comparative advantages. So the comparative advantages pattern of organization places several alternatives side by side and shows you why yours is the best. All right, final question. All of the following are logical fallacies except bandwagon, common ground, either or ad hominem. And the correct answer here is going to be common ground. All of the following are logical fallacies except common ground. So the logical fallacies, just so we know, the logical fallacies include ad hominem, which basically means a personal attack, reduction to the absurd, either or, false cause, and bandwagon. So as we know, that means that common ground is not one of them. All right, so let's wrap it up, right? Let's look at the study guide here. I'm going to send this study guide out to your email just like I did for the midterm exam review. I want you to really look at each of the words and the terms and the concepts and the theories I have here, all of that stuff. And I want you to research it in your textbook. Go through your notes and note these things in there and make sure that you're really studying these things because that's going to help you on the exam. So I've picked through the exam. It's impossible for me to say that all of these things are going to be asked of you on the exam. The reason being that the exam itself was created by the department, and it employs a test bank of literally thousands of questions. So I can't say for sure this is something you need to study. This is not anything that you need to know, but I can tell you that I've picked through those thousands of questions for you, and I've picked out things that I saw a trend with. Okay, so a lot of questions based off this, a lot of questions based on that. And that's why I put this study guide together for you to kind of narrow it down a little bit and show you what you need to be studying. So on here we've got types of power, 4 steps to the reflective thinking sequence, types of groups. It just goes on and on. I'm not going to sit here and read the whole thing to you, but this is your study guide. Don't worry about trying to copy all this stuff down right now. I'm going to send it as an attachment to your email, and hopefully that will really help you. But if you do have any questions at all, of course, you can reach out to me. I am still here for you until the very end of the course. And if you do have any questions at all, like I said, feel free to reach out to me. I'm so proud of the work you've done so far. I know that you're going to do excellent things in these final days of the course as well. So just keep up the hard work. Thank you for your efforts so far, guys, and have a great remainder to your week. Thank you.